Sometimes it's best to finish something your own way.
Not exactly how I imagined going out, you know?
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 games with multiple endings.
No problem. Let's get it done quickly.
For this list, we're ranking the games based on a variation of how good they were, combined with the number of different endings you could get when you beat the game, and of course, the overall quality of the endings themselves.
But we found a way to stop that from happening.
Also, this should be a no-brainer, but since we're talking about the endings, spoiler alert. Number 10, Deus Ex. We're starting things off with what is considered one of the greatest PC games of all time. Though it only had 3 endings, they were quite diverse from each other, a trend that would follow in Human Revolution with a rather stupid pick-your-own-ending machine.
Of course, there is another option.
But in the original game, your choices are: use the technology in Area 51 to allow the Illuminati to rule with an invisible hand.
We only influence, suggest, insinuate.
Merge with an AI and rule as a dictator.
Still much to be done. Many of the darkness that must be shown away.
Or destroy the world's communication networks so that no one can control the world.
The net's going black. JC. No more infolinks. Transmissions of any kind.
There's no right answer, so you gotta choose wisely. Number 9, Resident Evil, the GameCube remake. Now we move on to what is perhaps the best remake of all time. This game has 12 endings, though they mostly come down to who survived overall.
It's okay. He's alive. I just know.
There are 2 different playable characters, each with 6 endings, and they hinge on whether or not your 2 allies survived and if the mansion blew up. Granted, whatever happens, Wesker still ends up worse off. Number 8, Silent Hill 2.
You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did.
The psychological survival horror masterpiece, this game comes with a total of 5 endings, with a 6th added in the Xbox version. These endings include variations on what happens to the main character, determining whether he starts the whole thing over again, or if not, who he ends up with.
James.
Maria, I'm finished with you.
What?
There are also more absurd conclusions, one that involves a UFO invasion in a silent film, and of course, the infamous ending where you find out it was all done by a dog.
Omae no shiwaza datta no ka?
Number 7, Blade Runner.
I didn't think you were going to answer.
Sorry, but I was just sleeping.
The oft-forgotten point-and-click adventure gem by the now-defunct Westwood Studios, this game, based off the 80s sci-fi film of the same name, focuses on Ray McCoy, a rookie Blade Runner.
You know who I am?
His 13 endings are determined by whether or not McCoy hunts down the replicants.
Ever think of working with a partner?
I thought you only worked alone.
Whether he can convince the replicants he's one of them.
Who knows, brother? It may just be enough to make a difference.
Or simply if he just blows town with one of them in tow.
I didn't know where we were going, and I didn't much care.
Number 6, Persona 4 Golden.
How marvelous.
One of the PlayStation Vita's first hit games was an enhanced port of the PS2 game Persona 4.
Wait a second! Do you really understand what you're about to do?
This anime-inspired plot is impossible to compress into a short blurb, but what you should know is that this game has 10 endings that don't all appear right at the end. Instead, if you screw up too early, you might get one of the bad endings.
Ruling his death a suicide, the police have closed their investigation.
But if you play your cards right, you might make it through to the conclusion at the actual end of the game.
1 and...
It's good to see you, Senpai.
Kanji, it was welcome back. How could you mess that up?
Number 5, Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward.
Is there really any point to a world where everything is happy?
This visual novel, an adventure game hybrid on the 3DS and Vita, draws inspiration from Saw.
Allow me to welcome you to my kingdom.
The concept goes that a twisted, animated bunny tells a bunch of captured people that they have to complete a series of puzzles, and at the end of each puzzle, they have to choose either to ally with or betray another team in order to earn or steal points on their bracelet.
You understand what that means, right? If you can't keep your head in the game, you'll end up deader than a doornail!
The game has 24 endings, and those are based on who you helped and who you killed.
I suppose you could put it that way, yes.
Number 4, Heavy Rain.
With all due respect, sir, I'm done thinking.
In this interactive drama by David Cage, the climax involves converging on a warehouse to confront the origami killer.
Sean's done for if I've got the address wrong.
Depending on the player's choices throughout the game, the number of characters that appear at the end will alter the outcome, and decide if the two main characters survive or die.
Journalist Madison Page was laid to rest in Charity Cross Cemetery today.
Granted, the fact that this game is a murder mystery does weaken the replay value, since the big reveal of the killer's identity is always going to be the same.
Do you have any idea how it feels to be a worthless nothing in your father's eyes?
Number 3, Fallout 3.
And so it was that the lone wanderer ventured forth from Vault 101.
The Fallout series is no stranger to multiple endings, with the second game having different possible outcomes as well. But here, we're talking about the third.
Well, so much for celebrating.
Todd Howard stated that the game has over 200 endings, though that number is greatly exaggerated, with the real count being closer to 30, as most of them are just variations on the number of slides you get at the end.
You just better hope it doesn't come back to bite you.
Then of course, the Broken Steel expansion came out, and all of that wasn't an ending at all, but whatever.
So ends the story of the lone wanderer.
Number 2, Chrono Trigger. Considered one of the greatest RPGs of all time, Chrono Trigger's time-traveling epic spawns multiple time periods, each with a different decision on how to take on the final boss. All that, in turn, leads into one of the 18 different endings, most of which are vastly different from one another. This is a prime example of how to do multiple endings right, so if you're even the slightest bit interested in RPGs, you need to play this game if you haven't already. Before we get to our one true ending, let's have a look at some honorable mentions. Number 1, Star Ocean, The Second Story. We've talked about how these games can have anywhere between 3 to 30 endings and still be great, but this game has 86 endings.
Huh?
86 endings.
Oh, come on! What's the big deal?
And its PSP enhanced port, titled Second Evolution, bumps that number up to 100 endings.
Ah, well, these things happen sometimes.
These all come down to which characters you befriended and who ends up with who, but that doesn't even come close to doing justice to the staggering amount of variables.
Yeah! I mean, I could have just done it by myself, but I heard it's a lot easier to get a date if you got a partner working with you.
Do you agree with our list?
I can imagine the complaints flying in right now. Kids these days.
Which game did you want to finish multiple times?
Give me just 1 second, okay? I think I'm almost done here.
For more varying top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Well, what do you think?
It's perfect, Ethan.